the morning after the central bank raised rates by 25 points, with the banks leading the sell-off. Meanwhile, local investors piled into treasuries via the CBN weekly auction, buying some 270 billion naira worth of dated securities. So let's get some future forward analysis an insight into Tuesday's central bank rate decisions. My guest, Esther Adegunle, is the economist and associate director, business and economic growth at DI Nigeria. Is back on the show with me tonight from our Abuja studios. Good evening, madam. We were together on Monday trying to preview the central bank's decisions of Tuesday. You're back today. Thank you so much for making it back. What do you make of Tuesday's rate considerations and decisions, and what do you think the expected and unexpected consequences will be for the economy?
Yeah, thank you for having me again. It's definitely great to be back, right? And yeah, it was very interesting to listen to the acting governor actually speak to the decisions from the MPC meeting that held for 2 days and all. I mean, limited surprises. I think it's still around the time where, we still have hikes, right? So earlier in the week, we saw that Ghana also increased the interest rate by, 50 basis points, right? And Nigeria did the same, right? Because inflation is still high. So our MPR went up by 0.25%, right? And I'm not sure the last time we saw it go high marginally, right? So it's a low one. Are retained. I think the deposit banks would have been expecting that maybe they would have gotten a reduction too, but that was retained at 32.5%. Liquidity ratio was retained. And then, interestingly, we actually saw the asymmetric corridor actually narrow, right? So, yeah, I think interesting times. We get to see the surprises sometimes after, right? The surprise like today with the treasury bills, right? Almost doubling. So that's where the surprise came. But I actually think in terms of implication, if we look at it, the real interest rate is still on the negative. Okay, so I think investors will still be on standby, but interesting things happening with the treasury bills and all. I think that with the narrowing of the asymmetric corridor, it just might make it less attractive for the banks to put their money with CBN, and maybe they will just be giving it to the real sector and all. But yeah, I think more to come, to be honest, and we may not necessarily need to wait till the next MPC meeting before we see more things happening in terms of monetary policies.
But of course, everybody's expecting to see what happens between now and the next rate decision meeting in September in terms of inflation reading, other macroeconomic variables. The central bank acting governor, Shonobi, said the previous rate hikes had helped moderate inflationary pressure in the economy. Do you agree with that?
Depends on how you're looking at it, right? Because he used the word help moderate. So he didn't say that it has reduced it. He just said it has helped moderate. So maybe it could have been way higher if the CBN has not kept MPR continue to hike it, right? So maybe it's correct, right? In terms of what we see, the MPC meeting is in September. It's just 2 months, but a lot is happening in the economy. We might actually see inflation go as high as, I'm careful with numbers, it's just a forecast, it's my personal opinion, maybe 25%. That's where we currently have the food inflation. From this month, the full effect of the fuel subsidy removal, right? And yeah, so I think that inflation will continue to rise. By the end of before the next meeting, we would have seen the Q2 numbers, right, in terms of GDP growth. So we would have seen that, and it will be interesting to see, right? There have been forecasts from different places, but let's wait and see. I think also that particularly the exchange rate, the volatility, and the acting governor did mention it, that the volatility in the exchange rate is expected. I think we'll continue to see it just because this is the time, around this time, students are going back to school, Nigerians are going abroad for their masters and all, so there will continuously be that pressure for demand, and I don't think our supply at the moment can meet it. So we will continue to see that volatility even before the next MPC meeting. And I think expectations from Nigerians, not necessarily macro variables, but expectation is that before the next MPC meeting, palliatives would have been given to the most vulnerable, right, to cushion the impact of the fuel subsidy removal. And the expectation is also that some things will be done around spurring social economic activities in the country. So those are like largely the expectations between now and the next MPC meeting.
Yes, that's a future forward conversation I want us to have. You talk about the second quarter GDP. The IMF yesterday retained Nigeria's GDP growth projections at 3.2% in its latest World Economic Outlook. Were you expecting a higher forecast? What's your outlook for the second quarter, which of course will have that crunching period of June, July, and August?
So yes, IMF did stick to 3.2%, even though in terms of global rates, they extended it, right, increased it from a 2.8 to 3.0. But a lot has been happening in Nigeria. So if we're being realistic, IMF is really going in alignment with the World Bank. Last month, the World Bank had predicted a 3.3% that would end with, right? And that's quite reasonable because even with all the recent policies and all, we understand that, I mean, these are quite difficult times, challenging times, right, for citizens. This is the foundational stage for us to be able to increase our growth in the medium term, okay? So nobody's expecting magic that would grow just because some policies were changed at the short term. But in the long term and in the medium term, I want to go with the World Bank that forecasted that by next year we'll be seeing a growth rate of about 3.7%, and then by 2025 we'll hit a 4.1%, right? As long as we do the necessary things. Also, if we remember, Mr. President declared his target really is the 6%, right? So yeah, let's wait. These last 6 months are, as I said, difficult times, but in the medium term, the country will definitely grow higher.
Thank you so much for those perspectives. We wish you all the best. Have a great evening, man. That's Esther Adegunle, Associate Director, Business and Economic Growth at DAI Nigeria.